Hi there folks, welcome to Dunsy's Guitar World. First of all, happy 4th of July to all my American viewers. I was hoping to be in the States on the 4th of July this year, but I won't get there until the 5th. Unfortunately, I'm leaving on the 5th, so happy Independence Day to all you good folks in the United States of America. So today's video, you'll be glad to know, there is no guitar playing. So that's probably made your day already. However, I will be telling a wee story from back in the day. Now, this particular story actually happened over the 4th of July weekend. This is a scrapbook of my first band. So if we look back to, well, my first gig was on the 26th of October 1983. I'll put a wee close up so you can see it. Anyway, if we fast forward to 4th of July 1986. So on the 4th of July 1986, we played at the Plough Inn in Perth. On the 5th of July, we played in a place called Blackfriars in Glasgow. And on the 6th of July, we played the Oasis Club in Largs. Now I'll show you these all on a map. So at that point in time, back in 86, we were all 18, 19, and we decided to book like 6 gigs. The band booked 6 gigs in a week period, and we decided to do this weekend of gigs. And spoiler alert, the police were involved, the strong arm of the law. So on the Friday, we travel up to Perth, go all the way up to Perth, easy journey, and we're playing the Plough Inn. Now, my memory is we were playing to like a motorcycle chapter, and we seemed to go down quite well. At one point, they said, can you play Boston Tea Party by the sensational Alex Harvey Band? And we said, well, we know the song, but we don't really know how to play it. And they said, no, can you play Boston Tea Party by the sensational Alex Harvey Band? And we just had to do a version of it, like there and then, off the cuff, as it were. And we got out alive, so we got out of Perth alive. Now, what we'd arranged was we were going to travel from Perth on the Friday, and we're going to stay in a place called Kilsyth. Lots of Scottish names here, Kilsyth. Now, we were staying there because our drummer's grandmother lived in Kilsyth. It wasn't a big house she lived in, so there was a band, there was the 4 of us in the band, and we had Neil, our driver, who sadly passed away a few years ago, I'd heard. I hadn't seen him in years, one of the good guys, Neil. So Neil was our driver and drum roadie, and we had Alan and Henry. So there was 7 of us. So the 7 of us pitched up our drummer's granny's house at about 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Now, I think we'd had a few beers, apart from Neil, who was driving, obviously. So our drummer's granny was this lovely old lady. She must have been about 75 years old. So 6 steaming Scottish guys, teenagers, come in and sleep in her house. I think 3 of us slept in like her spare bed or something like that. So that was okay. We played in Perth. We survived the bike chapter gig. We travelled to Kilsyth. We stayed at the drummer's granny's house. Got up in the morning and we think we'll drive to Glasgow. So we're driving into Glasgow. Blackfriars was in kind of Glasgow city centre, just off the high street. Now, as we're driving down the high street, it was a beautiful summer's day. Sun was out, you know, and it was really busy. There must have been some kind of civic activity going on. The place was absolutely packed all up and down the streets. And there was a big queue at the traffic lights. And I distinctly remember this now. I mean, I don't know how many years this is later. This was 1986. I remember us looking out of the van, because we're in a UK vehicle, so we're looking out the passenger side on the left-hand side. And we went, is that girl just squatted down to do a pee in a shop doorway? And she had. She just squatted down. You know, this is the middle of the day. There was hundreds of people about. Just squatted down and did the toilet in a shop doorway, and you could kind of see it trickling down the road. So we were just sitting there going, it's going to be quite a night. So we get to the venue, Blackfriars. Now, I distinctly remember this gig as well. For some reason, my amp didn't work. Don't know what it was. I had my Marshall and stuff, but it just didn't work that night. I don't know what it was. And I had my MXR Distortion Plus. So what I did was I plugged my MXR Distortion Plus straight into the PA. And I can only imagine now, with more experience, it must have sounded f***ing awful. But at the time, I remember us thinking, oh, that sounds pretty good. That sounds good, Dunsy. Yeah, we should go with that. So we did this gig to a heaving pub, a pub full of steaming people. Like I say, there was a big civic event on. And we went down quite well, despite what must have been the worst guitar sound in the history of guitar sounds. So we leave there. Now, the main part of this story is the next part of the journey. So on Friday we stayed at the drummer's granny's house, and on the Saturday we're travelling from Glasgow to Largs away on the coast. And I don't know who it was, but somebody had a cunning plan.
I've got a plan so cunning you could put a tail on it and call it a weasel.
To just take a tent. So we had a tent in the back of the van. Now let's look at the van we were in. This was not a multi-million-pound tour bus. This was a 1970s transit van with all our gear in the back, and there was like 3 of us in the front, and the other 4 were like pushed up against the back of the van. You know, I don't think the suspension was very good. Travelling down to Largs with a tent in the back. Now, I distinctly remember we'd all had a good drink that night. It was a good gig, I have to say, Blackfriars, it was a good gig. So we'd all had a good drink, apart from Neil, who was driving. So we just thought, well, we're taking a tent, because what we're going to do is we won't need a hotel. We'll just pitch a tent in a field.
Carry on camping.
I knew I shouldn't have eaten those radishes.
On the way to Largs. Who's going to care about that? I mean, surely you can just pitch a tent in a field at 4 o'clock in the morning while you're all steaming, and nobody's going to bother. So this is before like mobile phones. I don't even think we looked at a map. We took the back road from Glasgow down to Largs through all these wee places I'd never even heard of, and like we're going like across the moors. And you know what they say about the moors?
That's East Proctor. It's all about here at Moors. I go this way.
Thanks for the ride, sir. You have lovely sheep.
Boys, keep off the moors. Stick to the roads. The best of luck.
So it must be about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, this is an actual photograph of us in the van, because it was in my scrapbook, and it said steaming at 4 o'clock in the morning on the way to Largs. So we opened the van. Neil must have found like a lay-by. Now I've got a picture here which I think might be the lay-by that Neil pulled into. He must have found like a lay-by, and he thought, brilliant, what we'll do is I'll just stop here, and one tent, I mean I think it was like a 2-man tent, so I don't know how many men were going to get in the 2-man tent. Now we jump over the fence, and we're kind of rummaging them out in the field. Now I don't know if there was cattle there, I don't know if there was sheep there. I mean, we could have got in trouble if we got arrested in the possession of a sheep. So we jump over the fence, wandering about, and then the next thing, you couldn't make this up, next thing, blue flashing lights coming down the road. Somebody must have phoned the police. I don't know who it was, because we were miles from anywhere. Maybe the local farmhouse, you know, had been alerted to the sound of 6 steaming folk trying to pitch a tent in a field, while the guy who's sober and driving the van saying, left a bit, right a bit, left a bit, right a bit, what's that sheep, what's that sheep? So the police pony up with a blue flashing light, nee-no, torches out. Oi, what are you lads doing? And I remember thinking, oh no, we're in a bit of trouble here. And somebody shouts back, we're just pitching our tent. And of course the policeman was like, pitching your tent? You can't pitch your tent there. In English what he was saying was, you cannot pitch your tent in that field, gentlemen. The 2 policemen were not happy about our behaviour. You know, people just wandering about in the middle of the moors with a tent in the middle of the night, you know, up to no good, they probably thought. We were just looking for somewhere to sleep, that's all it was. So they said, you can't pitch your tent there, you'll need to get back in the van, where are you going? And we said, oh, we're going to Largs. We're about 3 or 4 miles outside the Largs. And he says, well, get back in the van and go to Largs. And that was it. He made us like, we had to get the tent. I don't think we'd done much pitching by that point. I think we'd probably fallen over with the tent poles. So we have to get like all our gear back in. Now, to be honest, to this day, I don't know why they didn't just like arrest us for all being crammed into the back of a van. I mean, it must have been illegal even back in 1986. I don't think it was legal to have all these people piled in the back of a van with all the gear and stuff like that. But I think the 2 guys were thinking, you know, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I've got enough hassle dealing with these guys. I don't want to arrest them and take them to the local police station, wherever that might be, because it was the middle of nowhere. So he made her get back in the van and we had to drive to Largs. So I remember the sun was coming up, because it was summer, like I say, it was July. And the first thing we did was we had a soccer ball in the back of the van. So we drove past some football fields and we thought, oh, we'll just go out and have a kick about with the ball. And I've actually got a photograph. This is a photograph of us about 5 o'clock in the morning kicking a ball about in a field down by the water at Largs. Now, if you pay close attention here, much like going back to the lady who was caught shot in Glasgow, this is our singer Ross, who appears to be watering some of the grass in the area that we were playing in. And you can actually see there's like a building in the photograph, and I went on to Google Maps, the building's still there. So, if you could just superimpose us from 1986 on that picture. So it's like 5 or 6 in the morning, everybody's starting to sober up a bit by now, thinking, oh man, my head's sore. And we thought, well, what we're going to do, because we weren't getting into the venue till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that, so we had hours to kill. We hadn't had any sleep. The hangover's just, the head's starting to pound. And we thought, we'll just go to the local swimming pool and we'll get a wash. Which, that seemed like a good idea to a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds. Hangovers coming on, going, let's just go and get a wash in the local swimming pool. So we drove to the swimming pool, which was at the other side of Largs. And I remember sitting in the van, just waiting there for hours on the swimming pool, opened about, 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning. We just sat there for ages, kind of nodding off, head was pounding. And luckily, we must have planned this in advance. I mean, my cousin might chip in here in the comments, because we all had shorts and stuff. We must have planned a little camping expedition on the way to Largs, and then we get up and then have a quick shower, a quick wash in the local swimming pool. So we all had swimming shorts. And I can only imagine what the locals must have thought when these 7 guys, who hadn't had any sleep, who must have been stinking of alcohol, go into the local swimming pool. People are just doing their wee swimming stuff, and these guys come in, fall into the swimming pool. Surely when we got in the swimming pool, there must have been like an oil slick that came up or something like that. I mean, it woke us up. That's one thing, it woke us up. So it must have been in there for about an hour or something like that. I get back in the van. I don't really remember much of the afternoon. We probably went and got something to eat. Now, the gig in Perth on Friday, here's a photograph. We must have taken a bit of pride in our appearance, because we're looking quite dressed up. Now, by this point on the Sunday in Largs, like I said, no sleep, probably a 24-hour hangover, smelling of chlorine from the swimming pool and smelling of stale alcohol. We just ended up going on stage with I think I'm wearing a Motorhead t-shirt and Ross is wearing a Metallica t-shirt, and we went on and did the gig. I don't think there was many people there, which is lucky for both the people of Largs and the people who were in Arizona, the band who were doing the gig. We were fortunate it wasn't very busy. Now, I can't remember, but I think we'd maybe planned on maybe camping on the way back. That was part of the major plan, was to camp on the way to Largs and then camp on the way back. But I think all we wanted to do when we finished the gig in Largs was let's just drive home. I know it's 2.5 hours, but let's not get arrested camping in a field full of sheep who we don't know. So that's my 4th of July tale from way back in the day. That time we nearly got arrested for worrying sheep in a field just outside an Ayrshire coastal town in Scotland. Crazy stuff, folks, crazy stuff. As ever, it's a privilege and a pleasure bringing you content on Dunsy's Guitar World. Cheers for now.